Welcome. My name is Natasha Sherman, and I am your host. As many of you may know, I have done a number of shows on the opioid epidemic in the past year, from the point of view of parents who have lost children, recovering drug addicts, Ocean County prosecutor, attorneys who are going after Big Pharma, and I hate to say going after, but trying to hold Big Pharma accountable. And the problem goes on. So today, my guest is from the New Jersey Division of the Drug Enforcement Administration, the DEA, and her name is Susan Gibson, and she is Special Agent in Charge. Welcome, Susan.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. So as we were discussing before, this is not a problem that's going away. It's multifaceted. There's no easy solution. So I think it's important for us to know what, from your point of view, what we need to be thinking about, what the DEA is doing, what we can expect, what we should be asking for.
Well, DEA, we look at this problem domestically and internationally. And the foundation of DEA is our criminal cases. And we prosecute crimes that violate the Controlled Substance Act. But in addition to that, DEA also controls a closed circuit of distribution for pharmaceuticals. We control the raw product that's allowed into the United States, and we track that raw product into a manufactured form to the ultimate user who the drug is prescribed to. So DEA has a lot of hats that we wear, and in addition, we're also venturing a lot more into the demand reduction arena. We have in the past.
What does that mean?
We're trying to get information out to the public regarding drug usage, because we realize that we have to work with people. We all have to work together regarding this. One agency is not going to get us out of this problem, and that's for sure. We have so many great relationships with rehabs in the area, especially in New Jersey. From my short time here, I've met some amazing people. DEA also has programs like Operation Prevention, where we work with the Discovery Channel, and we get information that a parent can go to a website and find out everything they want to about a certain drug. We also offer a program in New Jersey called Hidden in Plain Sight, and we set up a bedroom and we go to different schools in the state, and we teach parents how to look for things. And if they find something, well, what does that mean? What is that item going to do? We have that. We also have the National Take Back Initiative, where to date we've taken off 260,000 pounds of unwanted pharmaceuticals off the street.
So tell me a little bit more about that. I'm going to ask you to extrapolate a little in each of those, because they all sound pretty significant. Mm-hmm. So in the taking back of drugs, how did you do that, and are you continuing to do it, and how do people participate?
It actually started in New Jersey. It's where it was formed. And there was a belief that if people get prescription drugs and you only take a close number or a small number of those 30-pill day supply, what are you doing with the rest of the pills? Because you're not supposed to flush them, because you don't want them into our water supply. So the concept was like, let's open it up and us receive that product. And
are we just talking about controlled substances, or just any pharmaceutical
that's prescription? Well, any pharmaceutical that's prescription we'll gladly take. Obviously our main goal is Schedule II substances, hydrocodone, those types of substances that are heavily abused right now.
And what do you do with them?
We then take them and then we destroy them the way they should be destroyed.
Which is?
We use a private contractor to take custody of the drugs, and then they destroy them in their own process.
Right.
So it's done the right way, and it's not getting into any kind of water system.
I asked somebody, because of course I know that about the water, and there are antibiotics in the water and all of that, and they said just throw it in your garbage bag.
Mm-hmm. Well, we don't want to do that. Unfortunately, there's people out there with really significant addictions. Any kind of pharmaceutical that's thrown out, if they know somebody, let's say, is going through cancer treatments and they use fentanyl patches, they'll go through the trash and take out the fentanyl patches. They'll go through the trash and take any kind of unused medicine, and they can either use it for themselves, sell it back on the street. We just want to take that away from them.
So is that program still in existence?
Absolutely. We do it twice a year, and it's on the DEA website, National Take Back Initiative. And
that's important for people to know.
It's an amazing program, and again, it's now a national program with DEA, but it was started here in New Jersey, so I think that's really neat. And 260,000 pounds we got just in New Jersey alone off the street. So it's one less pill that's out there for an addict, for
Yeah.
somebody that's trying to make themselves better.
That sounds very useful for people to know. And then you mentioned, what's the other thing you mentioned that you were doing?
In plain sight?
Yes.
Yeah. It was started again here in New Jersey. Our public information officer, Tim McMahon, actually had this idea, and it has taken off. What he does, he travels around the state of New Jersey, and we're actually venturing into other states now, where he sets up a bedroom. And he shows parents how to look through a bedroom of a child and to maybe find hidden compartments, hidden areas where a child could hide something. And then a lot of us, let's face it, we don't have that experience with drug usage, so we don't know what some of the items are. So we teach parents what to look for, how to find it, and we give them the information they need to make sure that they get in front of a problem.
So then, is this a suggestion that you should have it in every kid's bedroom, or just if you see something going on that has you feel like?
Well, I think every parent out there has to be a little bit more vigilant in today's world. I am not a parent, so I don't want to sit here and tell somebody how to be a parent. But I think this epidemic is so scary that you really have to be proactive. You really have to question things. You really have to look into things. We have a problem right now with fake pharmaceuticals on the street made with fentanyl. And a person doesn't even have to be in the throes of addiction to take the wrong pill and die. It's happening a lot, and young kids are just losing their lives constantly.
So why would somebody take fentanyl? Let's say they're not addicted, but why would somebody just take this pill?
Well, there's a couple of schools of thought, but one, if you have somebody that has started with pharmaceuticals and they've abused them, a lot of times they can't get a hold of those prescriptions anymore. So sometimes they convert their addiction to heroin. They go to the street to get heroin. When they're on the street, also fake pills are being offered. So they look like a Percocet, they look like a hydrocodone, but really they're made with fentanyl. So if they're processed the wrong way by a drug cartel that's trying to push them out for money, they could put too much fentanyl in that pill, and it would just take one pill for you to pass away from. It's very, very scary.
And I'm assuming fentanyl is cheaper to make.
Fentanyl is actually very cheap, and it has a very high profit margin. So right now, fentanyl labs and the fentanyl that's being pushed into the United States is astronomical. And I was just asked recently, what's the most dangerous drug out there? And I said, whatever fentanyl's in. Because they put fentanyl in methamphetamine, they put fentanyl in cocaine now, they put fentanyl in heroin, the fake pharmaceuticals. We've even had incidents where fentanyl has been laced into marijuana. Fentanyl just makes everything more potent because it's such a dangerous drug and it's so cheap. And the profit margin, that's all they care about. It's very scary.
It is very scary. And it's so accessible.
It's very accessible, and that's where we're trying to control it coming into the United States. So
what are the main sources?
Well, fentanyl right now, one of the main sources that we believe that is responsible for bringing a lot of it into the country is Mexico. And it comes through, through China, and it comes through Mexico.
Okay.
I'm sorry. And I was fortunate enough in my previous position, I was the Assistant Deputy Director over Diversion Control Division. And I was able to travel to China and meet with my counterparts over there and discuss regulation of fentanyl as a class. And we in DEA, we track a lot of law enforcement encounters with different narcotics, different kind of substances within the United States. And one thing that we did notice is that if China regulates one substance, the actual contact with law enforcement here dramatically declines. So we are really, really optimistic that if we can get it regulated over in China, that the presence here is going to decrease.
So 2 questions. When you said you went to China and talked to your counterparts there, are counterparts of the DEA or counterparts people trying to solve the same problem in China? The Chinese government.
Yeah, it's the Chinese government.
Are they having a problem with it?
Actually, they don't have a problem with fentanyl. They do not have an addiction to fentanyl. And to them, it's not necessarily a problem. And we have to say...
Why is that?
It's a very interesting phenomenon. Fentanyl is not a problem over there.
Meaning it doesn't have the same interaction in their body?
They're not using it.
Oh, they're not using it.
They're not using it. Yeah, they're not using it. But we did have some success about 2 months ago. China agreed to regulate all fentanyl in their country, so we're really excited to see that.
And I'm sorry for interrupting
right.
you, but it's like shocking that so they're not using it. Who's manufacturing it? Not the government.
No, the government.
So not controlled.
Clandestine labs are being
because they know we want
it.
it.
Yeah, any kind of lab could be used after hours. College campuses that have labs on it, we were told that that's a little bit of a problem that they encounter over there. But it's just being generated in large quantities over there. It's being brought into Mexico. Mexico then is moving it through our border, and that's how a majority of the fentanyl is coming over here.
Are any other countries having this problem to close to any degree that we are?
I believe that we are the biggest consumer of
illegal drugs.
Illegal drugs. I can't say for sure exactly what other countries are doing to combat it. All I can talk about is the United States and what we're doing. And I know for a fact when I spoke with my counterparts over in China, it's like you don't want to get where we're at. You don't want to start having to deal with what we're dealing with. So not only are we asking you to regulate it because we don't want you to have the same problem.
Right.
Yeah, and I think that resonated a little bit.
Sure, it's only a matter of time, let's face it.
But they were great to work with. It was a great experience. We went through their labs. They were really willing to talk. So I was really happy about that.
Yeah, because as you stated before, it's an international issue.
Absolutely.
It's not just a domestic issue. So I'm going to jump around a little bit. So Big Pharma has been guilty of some things, including pushing these drugs as if they were harmless. And I use the word pushing, as hyperbole, maybe. But where do we come in terms of creating some kind of regulation with them? Because there were towns. There was a town, I think in West Virginia, who sued some pharmaceutical company because they inundated their pharmacy. Every person in the town, there was enough oxycodone that every man, woman, and child in the town could have 100 oxycodone a day or something. It was ridiculous. So what are we doing about the pharmaceutical companies?
Well, there's a lot of active cases that are going on right now, so I can't get into the specifics of those. We are trying to work with those pharmaceutical companies in greater detail to monitor exactly what they're doing. A lot of them work with us, and some that don't. We're trying to build those bridges and get that dealt with. But it is a problem, and it's something that we battle every day, and that's the other side of DEA that people don't see. They think that we're constantly kicking in doors and doing all that, newsworthy fun stuff, but they don't understand the side of diversion that DEA deals with and dealing from the raw product coming in. And that's where we deal with the quota and the quota of the raw product coming into the United States.
Okay, tell me a little bit more about that. So you talk about diversion. What does that actually mean?
Diversion is, the concept is we're out there to prevent the diversion of pharmaceuticals, the theft, loss, any kind of usage of pharmaceuticals, not in the assigned closed system of distribution.
Right.
So anything outside of that, that's what DEA diversion focuses on.
Okay. It seems to me that in the last year or so, that some laws changed in New Jersey and you could only prescribe a certain number of opioids. Is that the case?
I don't know New Jersey state law regarding that specific incident. I know we're trying to do federal regulations, and we're working with Congress right now to look at various things to include, partial fill prescriptions.
Yes.
I know on a federal level, which is what I can speak of because I can't speak on a state level, we are definitely going down that road, and it's taking cooperation between the Department of Justice, DEA, our congressmen to get it right, because everything we write, Everything that we think of putting in any kind of regulation, it has to be on point. It has to be correct. And that's what takes us a little bit of time to get these regulations out. Because there's loopholes, and when people find those loopholes, that's what they use. So we're definitely trying to get it right and make sure that we have the pharmaceutical companies adhering to what we need them to adhere to, but also allowing the consumer to get the medicine that they need.
Yeah,
it's a very fine line. It's a dance that you have to do, because they, even though these substances are causing this addiction, there is a need for this medicine, and we can't take that away from people that genuinely need it.
And again, on the one hand, you don't want to over-regulate absolutely everything, because that becomes too cumbersome to even manage. But at the same time, there has to be some kind of accountability and regulation. And I know I've talked to people who, their children, had knee surgery, football injury, whatever, and the doctors prescribed, oxycodone and...
Yeah. It's funny that you say that, because, I got hurt a lot when I was a kid. And I would ask my mom, I was like, well, what was the biggest pain pill that I ever received? Like, I don't receive getting anything other than maybe Tylenol with codeine, maybe, but that was for like a serious injury. I think I was just on Tylenol. And actually, there's some studies out there right now that Tylenol is just as effective for pain as what a Schedule II is. So, I'm a little scared of teenagers, getting that kind of medication that early on, and especially not being intently scrutinized and supervised as far as the usage of it.
Yeah, and I think we're all accountable in terms of we have to be vigilant. Self-policing, and then we have to, I always tell my sons, it doesn't make a difference necessarily. I mean, they do or they don't, but I always tell them, if a doctor prescribes some kind of medication, go online and research it. Don't just take what is prescribed. But I know a number of years ago, I ended up in the ER room in a lot of pain. And before the doctor even saw me, they did some intake, and then a nurse came up to me and said, oh, the doctor has prescribed some morphine. And I said, excuse me? Why morphine? Why are we starting with morphine? Well, what do you take it when you're in pain, they said. I said, well, thank God, I'm not usually in pain, but Tylenol, maybe?
Yeah.
And so he went and talked to the doctor and came back and changed it to some high dosage Tylenol type. But then I talked to an ER doctor, and he said standard protocol is when it's just standard, they systematize everything. So now standard protocol is if you end up in the ER in pain, they're going to prescribe morphine or Dilaudid, period.
Again, I have to keep in mind, I still represent the United States government, so it's like my opinion can't, and I'm not a medical professional.
Right.
I can speak
But
personally.
he didn't agree with this, and he just said it's just the way his hospital operated. He said, if I'm on duty, I won't do that. I won't follow their protocol. I will talk to the patient, etc. But again, why is that happening? Why, especially in the face of more people dying in this country a year than died in Vietnam in its entire...
Absolutely.
And it still is happening.
Absolutely. Again, I'm not a medical professional, but I think the level of the seriousness of the injury or the pain would dictate how you respond to it. I know that people that go into ERs, and if there is any kind of medication prescribed to them, they need to participate in the prescription monitoring program. So let's say if Susan Gibson goes into an ER, and I have back pain, or if I'm going in for some injury, and you give me a 30-day supply of hydrocodone, he goes into a computer, he or she, the doctor, Susan Gibson, 30 pills, hydrocodone. So then if I go ER shopping and I go to another ER with back pain, they can run Susan Gibson. Oh, you just got a 30-day script a day ago. So we need to be vigilant about making sure we use PMPs across the country, making sure that they're utilized, that we can prevent from over-prescribing, definitely in an ER environment, absolutely.
Who is educating the physicians?
Well, actually, that's a very good question. DEA, I'm really proud that they had started, DEA Diversion had started the Pharmacist Diversion Awareness Conferences. And I think we were up to 13,000 pharmacists that we were able to meet. We had conferences across the country, and we were able to educate them regarding like what kind of behavior to look for, dealing with different, situations that if people are trying to get scripts, everything like that. And then we've transitioned into educating physicians. So now it's called the Physician Diversion Awareness Conference. So we're going to have ours here in New Jersey in, I believe, September. We're looking at some dates right now in September, where we actually meet with physicians, we interact with them. They get credit for continuing medical education, CME credits.
Right.
And I've been to a few of them in my past position.
And what's the focus of that?
It's we have medical professionals there also to talk about prescription and prescribing practices. We teach them, what to maybe look for as far as somebody that's doctor shopping. We just try and give them the information that, they could use in a daily practice to say, you know what, this isn't sounding right.
Right.
But we're really excited to get to the physicians. I was part of one conference where the head of the Medical Association for the state he actually said that he was scared of DEA. He did not like us. He did not want to interact with us. But after the conference, he felt that, we are approachable. We're not here to take pills away from those that need it. We are here to regulate it and make sure that it's not diverted. But, we know that there's a need. So please come to us and just building that bridge. That's all that they're trying to do. And I think it's been very, very successful. So I'm excited to have one in Jersey in September.
That's great.
Yeah.
So what is it that, what's your personal message?
I don't have children, but I have 2 nieces and a nephew. The agents that I supervise have so many kids running around, and I feel that we just need to get this message out there as soon as we can. We need to get this message that, you got to be aware of what you put in your bodies at an early age, that not to start this, because again, you may not be in the throes of addiction. You can just take the one wrong pill nowadays and you can lose your life. So I think getting the message out there about prevention, knowing what you're putting in your bodies at such a young age, I think is critical right now.
I think, and there's something I want to say about that, because, I had this conversation with somebody about, you tell children don't put anything in your body that hurts you, but they're seeing mom and dad, saying, oh, I shouldn't eat this, but I'm going to, I can't resist. And, we're all doing this. It's not like we're bad people or whatever, but we don't understand the subtle messages we're giving, Oh, don't eat sugar, and there's a box of Cheerios on the table. So you want to be really specific about your message.
Yes.
And I think that that's one of the things, because if the children are watching us, and they are.
Absolutely.
So for us to say, don't do anything that's going to be bad for your body, man, we are doing it every day.
Yeah.
So I think it's important to say pills, medicine, question your physicians. I know so many people who don't question their physicians. I have a coaching client who, is scared to, and I said, you don't understand. This person works for you. You actually pay their salary. Now, if somebody was working for you, would you be scared to ask them a question? And it was like, oh, no, of course not. And would you keep them around if they weren't doing a good job? No. So I think people have to, accept responsibility for educating themselves, also for being a demand for excellence, for being a demand for answers. I want my physician to educate me. And if they don't know the answer, well, find out. But again, so many levels. But it does start at home. And again, television, it's again monitoring what your children watch, I think, because the message and the subtle messaging on television is, if you don't feel good, take a pill. There's some pill to take. And again, I know it's free speech and all of that, but why is every second commercial about a pill or a drug?
It's concerning. That we live in a country that it seems that is the way out, and I guess that is why DEA has such a burden of regulating it. And because it's out there, there's a pill for every ailment. And there's, for some reason, in the United States, a need to get high.
Not only get high, I think it's this pervasive psychology of, and again, that's why, for pain management, how about meditation? How about self-hypnosis? There are all kinds of acupuncture. There are all kinds of alternatives that don't involve taking a pill. But the psychology, it occurs to me, in our society, is instant gratification, instant fix. Don't think too much about it, because if this one didn't work, there's another one that will. It's kind of the quick fix psychology. And again, as we know, that doesn't work.
No, it doesn't work. No, quick fixes do not work.
So we have a minute and a half. Anything you want us to know about the DEA, about what we should be watching for? First of all, that the DEA is not the enemy.
DEA is not the enemy, and I have to say one thing, I'm very proud of this administration. I'm proud of what we do, because we have a daunting task.
Yes.
Again, people think of DEA kicking in the doors and doing all the fun stuff that they see on TV and cop shows. We have a huge task to regulate things in this country as far as pharmaceuticals, and I think we're doing a good job at it. I think it's overwhelming sometimes, but I do think DEA and the people that work there, our hearts are in the right place, and we care, because we're not immune from this.
Yes.
And we have loved ones that we're losing, and please understand that our hearts are in this, and we're trying to do the right thing.
I think that's one of the most important things that I learned from you today. It really, because we think of the DEA as the door kickers, as opposed to having a heart, wanting to solve the problems, approaching it from a variety of sources.
We've all lost loved ones and friends, and we're not immune to it. As parents, we're not immune to it.
Yeah.
So,
Susan, thank you for being here.
thank you for having me. This was fun.
It's been great.
Thank you.
My name is Natasha Sherman. Thank you for joining us.